What could a recent Supreme Court ruling against an Airbnb in a corporate area gated community mean for other Airbnbs popping up in Stratas? We ask Christopher Henry, attorney at law and partner with Grant Henry & Rooms, who specializes in real estate, among other things. Good morning, Chris.
Morning,
Good
friend.
morning.
Welcome to Smile Jamaica. Hope you're well.
I'm well.
So what is the problem? So I own the place and I rent it out to Delia and she make a whole heap of noise. What if Delia don't make no noise and nobody don't even know say I rent it out? Is it still a problem?
Is not a problem for a long-term rental. I think the contention in that case, especially the Supreme Court, was that it is being used for short-term rental, or Airbnb as it's commonly referred to.
Yeah.
There are certain bylaws in Stratas that prevent the trade, which is Airbnb, and prevent short-term rentals. So if it is found out, even if the person's behaving themselves, if it is found out that they are using their strata lot for Airbnb, you can face some serious issues.
You know my place, Bridget? I me pay feet and me buy it and she not giving any trouble.
Yeah.
I know her from Miss Alico Youth and she come to Jamaica and she want to spend a weekend. What is wrong with that?
Yeah, she wants to spend a little weekend, but you're using it for something that is community living. And you're using it for something that it wasn't envisioned for.
Right.
And it's something that is against the bylaws. Everybody bought into it with certain expectations, and it was subsumed into the agreement for sale when you buy it. So you need to follow those bylaws.
I want to say, I think some of the issues, Christopher, whether they were Airbnb or not, are issues that if you live in a strata would have been agreed upon in terms of noise level,
Yes.
in terms of security.
Yes.
So two things I think are happening here. It's just how the strata should be operating, period, whether it's an Airbnb or not.
It speaks to that. It speaks to the matter of nuisance. It speaks to that you should respect your neighbors, etc. But I think what is the major issue with the Airbnb is that what comes with Airbnb. I know that there are a number of Airbnb owners that their guests are respectful, etc., but they're the other side of the coin, wherein they're persons who make a whole heap of noise, who are loud, and just disturb the whole piece of the strata. So it's a balancing act. But there are stratas that don't have any restrictions of that kind, right? So people should, if they are thinking to do investment properties, you should look into those stratas. Have your lawyer look through the bylaws that are attached to the agreement for sale to see if there's any restriction on short-term rent.
Why short-term? Suppose she stay, I mean, in other words, if I rent it to her and she stay a year, and the same thing me I do. So why short-term?
You see, as I said, it leads back to the whole nuisance and what comes with Airbnb and how they behave and how sometimes they even damage common property.
Correct.
No, you were saying if short-term as opposed to long-term.
Right.
So I'm saying if Delia is there for a long-term, she's not making any noise, why would you differentiate if she's there for 2 weeks as opposed to 2 years? What's the difference?
Well, you see, the short term, the persons change. The long term, and they're not giving any trouble, etc.,
Right.
is fine. They're within the bylaws. But you see, short term, constant changing, you don't know, it's a mixed bag. And it makes people uncomfortable.
You don't know it's who.
You don't know it's who
You don't know who
coming, and you
come look
don't
for
know
them.
who is who. Right.
Yeah, okay.
Is this now a common issue, Christopher? The Supreme Court ruling had specific things about it, there were, I won't get into the details, but are you finding that more and more people are saying we're having issues with Airbnbs, we want to see more control? Is that becoming more commonplace?
It is. In my former life, I was the legal counsel for the Commissioner Strata Corporations. And we actually had a ruling before the whole Supreme Court against an Airbnb. I won't call the name of the strata. The person was using it for Airbnb and there was much nuisance. So it's been coming from about 2019 when this whole thing stirred up, and we asked them to stop because there's a restraint on trade clause in the bylaws that speaks to Airbnb. So that was used to tell them that, no, we can't continue like that. So it's been coming for a very long time.
Yeah.
This is not new.
I think that restraint is one of the things that stops your neighbor from opening a shop and from having a salon or a boutique in the residential community. So I feel like people who have that restriction are saying, but I can't do business. Why are you doing business with your place and I can't?
Exactly. So it has been construed as a business.
Yeah.
And that is part of the reason too. It's almost like a business. It can be like a long-term rental where the person lives there. They've created an entire life. It's residence. There's a residence element. In Airbnb, simply business. I just stay in there catching and I'm making money.
Yeah. They approach an important topic just now. I don't know if you could speak to it. But what if it's not in a strata, but it's in a community? And I have a house, and they live beside me, you live the next side, and I rent it out, and the same night starts. Does the same thing happen, even though, as I said, I don't know if you can speak to it, even though it's not a strata?
Even though it's not a strata, there's a creature that's a kind of a lacuna in the law called the gated community. They tend to have no legislation. Some of them have bylaws, some of them don't have bylaws. So one would be prudent before even starting an Airbnb situation to look at, if you have bylaws, to look in the bylaws. If you don't have any bylaws, persons can challenge you on nuisance. I don't know, you said that they're not making any noise. If they're making noise, then nuisance. But they can probably try to challenge you on that ground. But if you're not making any noise, etc., I don't see any restriction on that sort of rental in those properties.
Okay.
Are there any types of precedents set in other countries as far as Airbnbs are concerned that we could probably, take a page or two out of their book? Yes.
Our act from, especially in relation to stratas, our act comes from Australia. And Australia has a plethora of judgments relating to Airbnbs within stratas. There's one famous one that we used at the Strata Commission called Burn versus Sarissa River Apartments. It was quite clear, and it defined what residence was, defined what short-term rental was, and I think it was also used in the Privy Council judgment from Turks and Caicos, where they also said that short-term rental was wrong.
Right.
The Privy Council case slips me now, and that is highly persuasive in Jamaica, but it's from Turks and Caicos.
You said not all stratas will have the same bylaws, so some people probably would allow.
Yes.
Does this ruling, do you think it got all of the stratas now to say, well, can't happen here, so? Do you think that might happen?
No, it won't. It is particular to this situation, to this strata.
Yeah, but couldn't someone use this as a lawyer? Could you not use this?
I find it quite hard because the facts are different and the situation is different. So I don't think you can use this case
as a precedent.
Right, as a precedent to say that, oh, you're a strata, because our strata is quite clear. Our strata says Airbnb is fine, we don't have any restriction. So it's a completely different situation. So if it is trying to challenge, you're just paying your lawyer for just dress up in a black and white, right? If you try to challenge it in that case.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is not going to open a door everybody?
No, it's not going. It's going to open a door for those stratas that have it, and their bylaws have prevented it, but it has been going on.
Can I amend my bylaws?
You can.
Okay.
You can at an annual general meeting.
Well, isn't that kind of the same thing may I ask still? Because can a man just say, well, all right, it's not in my strata, but I see the Supreme Court say must not next door, so make we put it in the bylaw.
So carry it to a resolution to your annual general meeting. So you can move it. You can amend it.
Okay.
You can amend it.
Do you think that might happen?
It will. I think some stratas will move to it because there are a lot of people making some good money off of Airbnb, and you don't want to restrain somebody's food. So that it's going to happen, but they're going to meet on resistance. And if resistance,
yeah, because you can say, well, when I move in, you never tell me say this can't happen. So in the middle of the day, you can't come up and you can't.
So that is why we have annual general meetings, and proprietors meet and discuss
and present their arguments.
I'm impressed, sir. Very well explained. Very, very well explained. I'm impressed. Attorney at Law, Christopher Henry.
Coming up, the winners of the Junior Achievement of Jamaica Company of the Year competition. Alpha Academy is going to join us in studio after the break.